Picture this. You walk into a crowded room. No one has spoken yet, but somehow you already know. You can feel who's nervous, who's confident, who's hiding fear behind a forced smile. It almost feels like magic, but it's not. It's a skill, a timeless skill practiced by philosophers, leaders, and warriors for thousands of years. The Stoics understood this secret well. In a world of betrayal, ambition, and power struggles, the ability to truly read people was not just useful, it was survival. And here's the truth. You can master this too. Not by tricks, not by mind games, but by learning the ancient art of observing, listening, and understanding what lies beneath the surface. So, stay with me until the very end of this video, because once you see how the Stoics did it, you'll never look at human behavior the same way again. And if this message speaks to you, if you want more wisdom like this, gently hit that subscribe button. Join us here at The Stoic Habit. Together, we rise stronger. Chapter 1. Listen with more than your ears. Epictetus once reminded his students, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." At first glance, this sounds almost too simple, but in reality, it is one of the hardest skills in the modern world. We live in a time of endless noise, constant notifications, opinions shouted across social media, conversations where people interrupt instead of listen. Most of us don't truly listen. We wait for our turn to reply. We prepare our next argument. We rush to be heard, but rarely pause to hear. But the Stoics taught something deeper. Listening is not just about sound. It is about reading the silence between the words, the shift of an eye, the nervous movement of a hand, the tightening of the jaw, the breath that trembles ever so slightly. Think about this. A friend tells you, "I'm fine." The words seem calm, but their hands shake. Their voice drops half a tone lower. Their eyes avoid yours. If you only hear the words, you believe the mask. But if you listen with your full presence, you sense the truth. You feel the storm beneath the surface. This is why mothers often know their children's pain without a single word spoken. A child may insist, "I'm okay," but a mother hears the tiny break in the voice, the silence that lingers a second too long, and she knows instantly. The Stoic lesson here is powerful. Train yourself to listen with your whole being. Do not only hear what is said, hear what is left unsaid. Do not only notice the sound, notice the silence that surrounds it. Because when you develop this art, you begin to see people as they truly are. Not the mask they wear for the world, but the human beneath it. And when you see that clearly, you move closer to wisdom, compassion, and strength. Chapter 2. Choose empathy over judgment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his Meditations, "When you wake up in the morning, remind yourself, today I will meet people who are interfering, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. They act this way because they do not know good from evil." Think about that for a moment. He was the most powerful man in the world, Emperor of Rome. Yet he reminded himself daily that human flaws are not enemies, but signs of ignorance, fear, and pain. This is the heart of reading people's minds. You cannot see clearly if you judge too quickly. Every angry outburst hides a wound. Every arrogant gesture hides insecurity. Every harsh word hides fear. Imagine someone shouting at you in traffic. The natural reaction is anger. You clench your jaw. You prepare to strike back. But pause for just a second and ask yourself, what storm must this person be carrying inside? Suddenly, they are no longer just a stranger attacking you. They are a human being wrestling with invisible battles. Epictetus himself endured mockery for the limp in his leg, the scar of his years as a slave. One soldier once laughed in his face, but Epictetus, unshaken, replied calmly, "You laugh at my body, but you do not see that your mind is crippled. That is not cruelty, that is clarity." He saw beyond the insult to the deeper truth. The soldier's cruelty came from blindness, not strength. And here lies the Stoic lesson. Judgment closes the book of another person's soul. Empathy opens it. If you judge, you stop seeing. If you empathize, you begin to understand. This doesn't mean you excuse every action. It doesn't mean you allow abuse. What it means is this: you rise above it. You refuse to let another's weakness drag you into weakness of your own. So the next time you face anger, pride, or cruelty, remember, behind every mask is a fragile human story. And when you choose empathy instead of judgment, you not only read others more clearly, you also protect your own peace. Chapter 3. Understand human nature. The Stoics observed something timeless. Though emperors and slaves lived very different lives, their hearts were moved by the same forces: fear, desire, pride, and love. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this truth every night in his journal. He was not writing as a ruler, but as a man. He knew his enemies, his allies, even his servants were all driven by the same fragile impulses that moved within him. Pause and reflect on this. How often do we treat others as mysteries, as if their behavior is random? Yet, when you look closer, patterns emerge. People chase status because they fear insignificance. They boast because they long to be accepted. They control others because they fear being powerless. Think of the colleague who dominates every meeting. On the surface, it looks like arrogance, but beneath it, perhaps a deep fear of being overlooked, a wound left by years of insecurity. Think of the partner who clings with jealousy. On the surface, it feels suffocating, but beneath it, perhaps a desperate desire not to be abandoned, a scar from old betrayal. Seneca once wrote in his letters, "We are angry at the wrongdoer, but if we understood, we would pity them more than punish them." This is why the Stoics studied not just philosophy, but humanity itself. They watched soldiers, merchants, rulers, and beggars, and they saw the same patterns repeating, century after century. The lesson is clear. If you want to read people's minds, learn first what drives all human beings. See every action as the echo of a deeper cause. Ask yourself, is this fear? Is this desire? Is this pride? Is this love? When you do, confusion disappears. People stop being puzzles. They become reflections of universal truths. And here's the gift. When you recognize these patterns in others, you also begin to recognize them in yourself. You see your own fears, your own desires, your own pride mirrored in the world around you. To understand human nature, then, is not just to read others. It is to walk the path of wisdom, where every encounter becomes a mirror and every person becomes a teacher. Chapter 4. The Power of Silence. Socrates was famous for asking a question and then waiting. He let the silence stretch, sometimes uncomfortably long, and in that silence, people revealed themselves. They spoke more than they intended. They exposed truths they tried to hide. The Stoics understood this. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a mirror. It draws out the inner world of others more powerfully than endless words ever could. Think about the last time you rushed to fill a silence. Maybe in a meeting or in a difficult conversation, you felt the pressure. You spoke quickly, maybe more than you wanted to. That is the secret. Silence has weight, and those who can hold it, hold the power. Seneca once wrote, "Silence at the right time is the sign of a strong mind." When you stay silent, you give the other person space, and in that space, the truth leaks out. The nervous glance, the words they choose, the words they avoid. Silence forces honesty. Imagine this in your own life. In an argument, instead of shouting back, you pause, you breathe, you say nothing. The other person, expecting a fight, suddenly feels their own anger echo in the quiet. They hear themselves more clearly than ever before. Or in negotiation, while others scramble to speak, you wait. That pause becomes pressure. And very often, the other side reveals more than they planned. This is not manipulation. This is mastery. Silence gives you control not over others, but over yourself. It keeps you from being dragged into the chaos of reaction. The Stoic lesson: practice the art of restraint. Resist the urge to fill every silence. Listen not just to words, but to what is left unsaid, because the one who can stay calm in silence becomes unshakable. And in that stillness, you don't just read others, you see life itself more clearly. Chapter 5. Reading others is reading yourself. The Stoics believed something profound. When you truly see another person, you also see yourself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each day, the faults of others are not different from my own. If I look closely, I will find the same seeds within me. Think about this. When you notice arrogance in someone else, pause. Ask yourself, have I ever craved recognition the same way? When you see fear in another's eyes, ask, do I not carry my own fears, hidden in different forms? When you hear harsh words, ask, have I never spoken out of anger, only to regret it later? This is the mirror the Stoics point us to. Other people reflect back to us what already lives within. Their weaknesses are our lessons, their mistakes are our warnings. Their humanity is our reminder that we too are human. Seneca once wrote, "We are waves of the same sea, leaves of the same tree, flowers of the same garden." To read others, then, is not about control. It is not about getting an advantage. It is about wisdom. It is about compassion. Because the moment you recognize yourself in another, judgment fades, empathy grows, and peace takes root. Picture this in your daily life. A colleague speaks with pride. Instead of annoyance, you remember the times you wanted to prove yourself. A stranger lashes out. Instead of anger, you see a reflection of moments when pain made you less than kind. In these reflections, you don't just read their minds, you understand your own heart more deeply. The Stoic lesson is simple but powerful. To understand others is a gift. To understand yourself is freedom. But to unite both is true mastery. When you look into the soul of another, you are also staring into your own. And in that moment of clarity, you become wiser, calmer, stronger. Conclusion. Today, everyone wants the secret to reading minds. But the Stoics remind us it's not about manipulation. It's about understanding. When you see clearly, you grow calmer. When you empathize, you grow kinder. And when you master yourself, you become free. Remember, understanding others is a gift. Understanding yourself is freedom. But combining both, that is true mastery. If this message resonated, give this video a like and join us by subscribing to The Stoic Habit. And drop a quick comment below. I choose clarity.